Welcome to the Otherweb. Our guest today is David Griffiths, a name that resonates with over 1.5 million followers across social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. In his first 13 years as a content creator, David gathered only 100 followers. Then, suddenly, he figured it out. Now you have a chance to figure it out too. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you on. So you've been on YouTube for 13 years. What have you learned?
It's not about me. It's about the person that I wish to serve.
That's an interesting lesson. Do you mean that in terms of the content you create or in terms of the entire journey or both?
I'll borrow actually from, I think it's Donald Miller's usage of the hero's journey. So I'm a guide and I want to help someone with a problem and take them. They're the star, they're the hero, and I'm going to take them on a journey from where they are to the transformation that they desire. So in order for me to convince them that I'm the best guide to take them on the journey, then the content that I create should inspire confidence in me pertaining to helping them with the journey or the transformation they desire. For the 13 years that I was on YouTube, where I only had a little over 100 followers, I was just thinking I was supposed to be letting all the people know about the cool things that I was doing. So I'm a musician. I'd post videos from my concerts. I did a live recording in 2012, actually. And I thought by posting these really wonderful videos of the songs, that would surely give me thousands of viewers, but it didn't happen. It wasn't until I realized that I needed to think differently about the content. I needed to get clear about who it was that I wanted to solve a problem for. And when I started aligning my content consistently with the audience that I was really looking forward to connecting with and serving, that's when I started to see improvement in my results.
How do you make that decision? Like, you're essentially talking about picking a target audience or picking your perfect viewer, but how do you know?
That's a great question. So once upon a time, when I was first convinced that this was the path that I should take, because I wanted to not waste a lot of time on my journey or not waste any more time than I already had, I got a coach. And my coach said, pick 8 or 9 things that you're passionate about or interested in or skilled at and post about those things. And then pay attention to your audience, because your audience is going to teach you what it is that they want from you.
All right, so let's use me as kind of a guinea pig here. Let's imagine that I wanted to become a massive influencer for, I don't know how we will define that, but let's say that as the goal. And we could start from, what are the things I know? I work in media, I work with AI, maybe I can talk about that. Or we could start from, all right, who are the people I wish to serve? What are they interested in? Could be something completely different. Maybe even if they want to hear about AI, they don't want to hear about AI the way that I think about AI because I've been in it for 15 years, right? So what is your approach here? How would you recommend people go about it?
Okay, while I would love to look at your face and go, oh, his face is lighting up now, because we're talking about the intricacies of general AI. I don't know all the terminology to use, but if that caused you inspiration, that might be a signal of the direction that we're going, as long as that direction is serving someone in some way, right? And so, for example, if someone has a problem figuring out how, with all the things they have to do as an entrepreneur, they're going to create content as well as serve their customers, for them to hear about automation and AI in terms of saving them time, now that's exciting for them because it's solving their problem. They might not be really interested in the intricacies of the technical side of why it's able to do what it's able to do. But when you say, so instead of hiring an assistant, you can actually use this software that's using AI and it will do the things that you would want your assistant to do. Now they're excited because you've made it relevant to their problem. That's what I would recommend. figuring out what the big problems are of those people, and then using what you're passionate about and knowledgeable about and skilled in to serve and solve those problems.
All right, that's awesome. Let's imagine I did that. We are fast forwarding 6 months. I have not a massive following. Let's say I have 5,000 followers.
Cool.
And they're all listening to my messages about how to use AI to automate your life, basically, how to use AI to save time. I might see what I think a lot of influencers are seeing, which is that their content is becoming repetitive because their audience came for one thing and there's only so much you can talk about it. I mean, you don't get a new AI tool every day, right? So if I became the AI tool guru, I might start boring myself. How would you recommend people go about facing that challenge?
There's two different ways that I would recommend facing that challenge. One, I won't take credit for. I'll just borrow from. I'll borrow from one of the influencers whose content I appreciate. Vanessa Lau is someone who positioned herself as an expert on Instagram, and she has a large following on Instagram and on YouTube. Unfortunately, she needed to take a year sabbatical because she burnt out, because she just created, well, as she's explaining it now, I'm sure it's nuanced, but she primarily created in terms of being effective for navigating the algorithm and allowing it to help her to have a large influence by having large numbers of followers. But what that did then was that pigeonholed her into constantly creating content about what it was that she knew the algorithm would feed out to a larger audience. So eventually, she became a slave to this new situation that she thought she was entering to get rid of the grind of the corporate ladder. Instead, she created her own world. She had a very successful offer. But after she created it, she realized it was its own prison. So now, after taking her sabbatical, she comes back and she views content as more holistic. She views it not only as her teaching about the thing that she knows people want help from, but it also allows her to let us see a little bit about her process. Like, why is it that she does what she does? What are the things that make her passionate about the things that have helped us? And so then that starts to broaden the circle to things that are interesting to her, but framed in a way that's related to the primary thing that she does. So I would first say, so that's one way to do it, because then what happens is you are the brand. So yes, we're focused on how you can help us, but we're all curious to learn about this person who now we see as an authority and a resource. We're curious about, what you like to read and where you like to go and who you like to hang out with. So it allows you to become broader than just the subject matter that we're going to want your help from.
Right. That makes total sense. And honestly, one of the influencers that I tend to follow quite a bit is Alex Hormozy, who talks about small business stuff, etc. But one of the things that he said lately, I think it was, let's say, about a month ago, he mentioned that he tested wider appeal, like doing videos about what he eats, how to eat well, his relationship with his wife, etc. And that got a lot of views, but those were not the people that he wanted to view his messages. So he's narrowing things back down, which makes total sense if you're making these videos just as a lead gen tool to get customers. But once you narrow things down, I'm looking at these videos and wait, I've already seen all these headlines. They are exactly the same. It's how to be a millionaire in 2025. If I needed to earn $1 million in 2025, here's what I would do. And you just have these videos over and over and over. And I'm sure it makes sense to a new viewer of the exact same avatar that he's targeting. But to somebody who is subscribed to him, that's just cause to unsubscribe, right?
I think so. Thank you for mentioning him, because he's someone who I love watching his content too. So what is his primary focus? Well, he's let, it seems to me that, okay, much like I was really passionate about growing on TikTok. And so I made that my obsession and I was laser beam focused. And now I have over 1.2 million followers on TikTok. when I started teaching people how to do what I do, I realized that there's not many people who are willing to do what it takes to have that many followers. So in reality, a better approach for me then is because I've developed the skill, let me show you how to connect with the people you wish to serve effectively. Keeping in mind, you don't need 1 million followers. In fact, you probably don't want 1 million followers in terms of what it is that you hope to achieve. Now, on the other hand, in his case, so he already had, he's already the $100 million man, but now, the next step, if he's now seeking to be the $1 billion man, and then who knows what his ultimate goal is, because he seems rather driven. Like he's not living that lifestyle where someone says, 4-hour work week. He's not living that lifestyle. He's like excited, enjoying what he's doing and grinding, but doing it at the highest level with all of the toys and support that is available to him. Will he become a different person in 5 years? Perhaps. And then maybe he will want to do more kinds of content. But right now it doesn't serve him because his ultimate goal is that building acquisition.com and reaching the next financial plateau. So
right,
I'm not going to recommend that for the average person, because the average person, I don't think that's the path to happiness. I'm not saying it won't make him happy. I'm saying I don't know that that's no, I know that that's not the path to happiness. You can be happy doing that, but in reality, I would recommend a different approach that would allow someone not to get burnt out if they're not as driven as he is.
For what it's worth, I also should mention that one of the things that I really like about his approach and why I'm trying to reverse engineer everything he's doing is that, as far as I understand, he records all his social media postings in one session for an entire 2-week period, right? And so he's not going there every day thinking about what am I going to create. He's running his business as he's doing his thing. Once every 2 weeks, he shows up at some place and just talks in front of the camera. And then somebody else turns it into content, which seems to me like that is much more sustainable for a business owner that doesn't want to be an influencer full time, and for whom influencer type content serves some other purpose, whether it's getting customers for your business, whether it's just building an online persona that gives you more credibility to then end up on CNN, or maybe that's getting a book deal. I heard that right now to get any book deal anywhere, you need 100,000 followers. That's the rule that most publishers use. So that's kind of what I liked about it. But I guess the downside is maybe he doesn't remember that 2 weeks ago he spoke about the exact same things already.
Interesting. Yeah. And I will admit, because you're right, but I'll admit that late at night when I'm tired and rather than like look for entertaining content, I will pull a video of his that's the latest, that's talking about something that he's talked about 20 times before, but I will enjoy it because I just want a refresher. So there is the person like me who needs the refresher, even if it is rather redundant.
For what, again, I'm not denigrating his content, and every once in a while he comes out with something that maybe he's talked about 5 years ago, but I haven't seen it, right? And so for me, it is completely new and it blows my mind. But yeah, it's interesting to me what works. I'm seeing this with a lot of influencers in other spaces, that redundancy seems to be almost a characteristic of the really successful guys. If you look at Thomas DeLauer in the fitness space, or if you look at even Mike Israetel, who's basically sort of the lifting guru, right? The science-based lifting guru. Well, other than every week there is some new research, they're pretty much saying the same things over and over and over and over and over again, right? And yet 5 million followers each. So
yeah, I recommend to people that just you make sure you're being authentic, because as you're going to be consistent, you're going to be doing a whole lot of what people have come to know you for, and just make sure it's something you don't mind doing for the next several years. with the knowledge that you can broaden it if you want to, but just making sure that there are people who figured out what the algorithm wants, and so they do stuff that isn't really them, and then they're frustrated because they have an audience that really only wants one thing. If someone has built an audience around them and the different nuances of who they are, then that's a better situation to be in. And I was going to mention, like, once again, it depends on what it is that you're hoping to accomplish from being online. Last night I went to a meetup for podcasters, and I was talking to a young lady about her podcast. And I explained to her, I told her the story of this 28-year-old young influencer from LA. I think she's from East Coast, but now she's out in LA. And how I saw this one video that she made that told her story of being an engineer, and I think she's half Black, half Chinese. She's in this world, and she's working hard. She's not enjoying the nuances of this world. And then some friends are like, "Hey, you should try social media. I think you'd be really entertaining." And so she goes on it, and she's well received, and she grows this larger audience, and then eventually she makes this exit. Her story is um, in, intriguing. It makes you fall in love with her. You want her to win. You want her to like find the path where she feels accepted and she feels like she's self-actualized. I bought one of her like ebooks because I just really connected with who she is. I think that sometimes when we're not authentic, we don't have a story that we can actually connect with people with. And if we had the authentic story, we would have a better kind of audience that would support what we're doing, that would look forward to getting value from us because they're really bought into our journey and our story.
That makes total sense. So, on that topic of authenticity, how would you recommend people go about actually creating the content itself, sort of the tactical approach to things? Because it seems like what most of the agencies out there would tell you is first, you figure out what the hook is going to be based on analyzing what is currently well received, right? What everybody else is talking about. Then you try to structure it and plan it in advance. And then once you have a plan, turn the camera on or ask your videographer to turn the camera on and do multiple takes until you get a really good one. And I'm thinking about that. And yeah, that might result in a good video, but that seems like work. Like there's nothing authentic about that. Now, to me, the most authentic approach is somebody asked me a question. I'm going to tell you what I think about it. Now, hey, videographer, can you cut that into something useful, please? Figure out what the hook is, which part is going to be what. That seems really authentic. I don't know if that's going to be as well received by the algorithms. Is there a third approach? Is one of those better than the other?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, I want to back up and say this. So, you are hosting me on a podcast. I imagine that you've done this so many times that you're very fluent in having conversation in this context. And so, because this frame of having conversation that would be a podcast is something that you do on a regular basis, you become fluent in it, and it becomes easier for you to do. And you navigate our conversation in a way to accomplish creating the value that you hope to create for your audience. Likewise, if you are going to create 45 to 55-second sound bites of information, it's good for you to understand, one, there's 8 billion plus people in the world, and 5 billion plus of them are online. So if you don't do something in the first 2 seconds to interrupt a pattern and get someone's attention, they're going to miss all the wonderful value that you have, as authentic as it may be. So within your realm of authenticity, you're then going to have to get used to saying something, even if, like, for example, you're answering a question, like you said. It could be the way that you say the question. Hey, has anyone ever asked you if AI is going to steal their job? All right. So it's about AI. It's a question, but you're asking in a way that's being a little bit dramatic and maybe emotional. So that can interrupt the pattern and get someone's attention. And then you can give your value and it can be authentic. Um, that hook at the beginning, at first, it's not going to seem comfortable. Like at first, when I went, hey, don't scroll, that didn't feel comfortable because I don't say that to people. But now I say it both, if I batch record it, I'll say it, 30 times in one day. Um, so now it becomes second nature. So allow the fact that it's a frame that you're going to be using. And if you do it enough, it's going to become more comfortable so that it can be new and appropriate and effective for short form video, but still authentic. So I think that it's important to say that. There's different ways that we can create what it is that you want to do as content. So I would suggest, wow, there's 3 ideas that I'm going to try to share real quickly. So idea number 1, you do want to do research into seeing what's effective. One of the techniques that I teach my students is to go, let's say, you mentioned a couple influencers that are being effective that you admire. I would find 5 influencers, 4 or 5 that are similar in topic to what it is that you wish to be known for or the topic and area you wish to serve in. And I would go on their platform and pick the highest 4 or 5 performing videos. And then I would take the link or I would rip them, into an MP4. And then I'd put them in a spreadsheet. I'd put the stats in. And then I'd start to analyze what's going on in the video and come up with a theory as to why it was effective. Then, after you do this for, the 4 or 5 different people, and you start to see different patterns, I would pick a few of my favorite videos and I would make my version of them. And let me tell you why. And this is not, this is something that I'm recommending for someone who I imagine like yourself, who might be a little bit more heavy duty in what they're able to bring to their social media game. Because I want people to understand this aspect. And then I'm going to land with my last version, which I particularly feel called to help the tech challenged and the more mature people who are late to the social media game. And so then I'll share with you what I think for them. But for the person who is really wanting to gain a larger audience and have the potential to go viral, if you come up with the structure that is used in these effective videos, you can follow the same pattern, but just use your own ideas. And what will happen is the algorithm will recognize the structure as an effective structure and send it out to more people. And of course, it's going to affect people more favorably as well. The algorithm's paying attention to how long people are watching your content. So if you figure out a way in the way that you make the content to have people want to watch more and more of it, and maybe they're curious about something and they watch to the end to figure out that thing they're curious about, then those videos that get watched to the end get sent out to more people. So by you studying the structure of what already is effective, you're taking a shortcut to the front of the line. You're creating a structure that the algorithm already likes. It's already been demonstrated. It's already been proven effective. So that's important because there's all this content. The people who go to the front of the line are the people who figure out effective hooks, and they figure out what are the structures that have been effective on the platform in my niche. Let me use them so I too can be effective in the same way. I'm now going to give my personal twist, but it's going to do better because I'm using a structure that's already proven effective. Okay, so that last one for this person who doesn't have the bandwidth to do that, 90%, I believe, of the time, if you just do a talking head video and you're answering a question that's a strong problem of the person you wish to serve, that's going to do the trick. You just have to be consistent enough to get the data to see which questions are more important than others to your audience.
That was awesome. I didn't want to interrupt what you were saying. And yeah, I think the talking head approach is obviously the easiest one because, well, in part, if you cannot do that, you probably shouldn't be on social media, right? So that in itself is almost a test of sorts. If you can speak in a way that makes people interested, good. Then you belong here. Now you have to figure out all the structure thing, reverse engineering algorithms, all of that. If not, then probably you should go to Toastmasters and start speaking a little bit just to get to that point.
Or find a wonderful person to be your person of influence to speak on your brand's behalf.
That might be another approach as well. Right. So I think one thing that you mentioned, though, is 45 seconds. I think you said that in the very beginning of this answer. And I'm thinking 45 seconds, that almost assumes YouTube Shorts, I guess, to some extent. Every medium seems to have its own preferred length. How do you pick which one to go for? And I know that you've personally started on YouTube, but now most of your followers are on TikTok. So what was your evolution here?
So let me say a couple things for that. Short form video usually is 60 seconds or less. So lesson number one that I learned when I was growing on TikTok is shorter is easier to master than longer. So you should try to master a shorter piece of content first before you try to do longer. So my first video that went viral, I took my phone, I was in the line at Chick-fil-A, and so I'm filming the long line of cars. Then I turned the camera around and go, what's so special about Chick-fil-A anyway? And that was probably 7 seconds long. And it was relatable. And I think, the energy of how I asked the question, got people's attention. And so, interestingly enough, I had 17,000 views in the first little bit. And for me, with a relatively new account, that was like huge. I was like, oh, I've gone viral. What it was is that it was a shorter piece of content. And so the important metric that I didn't realize at the time was probably the most important thing that I should have been paying attention to is how long can I get people to watch this piece of content? Some people enjoyed it so much that they would watch it again. If you see something that's funny or that's shocking, you may watch it several times. The algorithm pays attention to that. So it's not only that people watch the whole thing, but they watched it multiple times. That content really gets sent out to a lot of people. So master short first, then master longer. On YouTube Shorts, you can only do 60 seconds, but on TikTok, TikTok's on another page now. They're trying to get people to do longer content, and they actually reward you for doing longer content. But like previously, like different people had it rolled out in different ways, but you could do a 90-second video that could be posted on TikTok, and then you can post the same thing on Instagram. But you can't post that same thing on YouTube because it'll only take 60 seconds of it. So as far as finding the length, if you said, hey, David, I'm just going to focus on TikTok, I would probably create I would experiment with maybe 3 different kinds of content. One really short to see if I could master that format. Then one that's like a little less than 60 seconds so it could be posted on other platforms as well. And then I would try doing 90 seconds, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because those seem to be being preferred by the algorithm. And when the algorithm likes something, then it gives you love, period. So when I first got going on TikTok, going live was important to the algorithm and the platform. And so when I would go live, afterwards, I'd get 200 or 300 followers. So I started going live multiple times a day. Whatever the platform is promoting, they're going to give you love if you pay attention to it.
Interesting. And it looks to change from time to time because I think I've seen some influencers that I really respect actually say the opposite, but that was a few years ago. They were talking about YouTube and Instagram. You want to be 30, 40 seconds maybe if you want a short video, but TikTok, don't go above 25. Nobody has an attention span there. And so it seems like now they are shifting towards longer form, which is in itself kind of curious. All right, my last question for you is, where can people follow you? how can they learn more about what you're doing?
If you have a question for me, please email me, david@contentcreatingacademy.com. david@contentcreatingacademy.com. On Instagram, I'm David the Digital Creator, and on TikTok, David Griffiths 07. On YouTube, I'm at David Griffiths Music. I'm also a recording artist. And on Facebook, I'm at Orphan Helper.
David Griffiths, thank you so much.